I never thought the sound of gunfire could echo so deep into my soul, like thunder cracking open the very earth beneath my feet. It was 1884 in the Wyoming Territory, a land as unforgiving as it was beautiful, where the wind howled secrets through the red hills and the sky stretched endless, mocking our small struggles below. That night, Sunset Valley, my home, my prison, my everything, became a battlefield. The bandits came like shadows spilling from the darkness, their horses pounding the dry ground into dust, their rifles spitting fire that lit up the night sky. They weren't just thieves. They were demons in leather chaps, hollering curses as they blasted through our rickety fence, bullets whizzing past like angry hornets. I grabbed Pa's old Winchester from the mantel, my hands steady despite the terror clawing at my chest. "Clara, get down!" I shouted to my sister, who was already scrambling for the shotgun in the corner of our cramped kitchen. The air reeked of gunpowder and fear, mingling with the acrid smoke rising from the barn they'd set ablaze. Flames licked at the wooden beams, devouring the hay we'd spent weeks stacking, our horses screaming in panic inside. I fired back from the window, the recoil slamming into my shoulder like a mule's kick. One bandit yelped and fell from his saddle, but there were more, too many. They wanted our land, our livestock, everything we'd bled for since Pa died 2 years ago, leaving us 2 women to fend off the wolves of this wild frontier. Clara, my little sister with her wild curls and eyes that still held a spark of innocence, crouched beside me, her face pale but fierce. "Eliza, they're circling the house," she whispered, her voice trembling just a fraction. We were all each other had left, 2 Hawthorne women against a world that saw us as weak, as prey. But we weren't going down without a fight. I reloaded, my fingers numb from the cold seeping through the cracks in our walls, and took aim at the leader, a scarred brute with a bandana masking his grin. The shot grazed his arm, sending him cursing into retreat, but not before they torched the outhouse and scattered our chickens into the night. As the bandits fled into the hills, their laughter fading like a bad dream, I slumped against the wall, my heart pounding like a war drum. The barn was a smoldering ruin, our horses gone, stolen or scattered, and the fence lay in splintered pieces. Clara rushed to me, her arms wrapping around my waist, her body shaking. "We made it, Eliza. We're alive." But alive wasn't enough. Not in this territory where men like those outlaws roamed free, and women like us were expected to marry or perish. The debt collectors would come soon, sniffing around our mortgage like vultures. Pa's death had left us with nothing but dirt under our nails and a ranch that demanded more than it gave. I wiped the soot from my face, feeling the weight of it all pressed down, heavier than any storm cloud. Sunset Valley wasn't much to look at, a patch of scrubby land nestled between crimson hills that bled red in the dying light of day. The house was a weathered cabin with a sagging roof that leaked during every rain, and the barn, well, now it was ash. But it was ours, passed down from Pa, who had dreamed of turning it into something grand. He taught me to ride, to shoot, to stand tall against the wind. "Eliza," he'd say, his voice rough from years of dust and tobacco, "this land don't care if you're a man or a woman. It just wants your sweat." And sweat we had given, Clara and I, mending fences till our hands blistered, herding cattle through blizzards that froze the marrow in our bones. But the debts piled up like snowdrifts, and the neighbors, folks like old Mr. Harlan from the next valley over, whispered that 2 spinsters couldn't hold a ranch alone. "You girls need husbands," he'd grumble over his pipe at the general store, his eyes pitying. "Ain't natural otherwise." Clara, bless her, was the light in our darkness. At 22, 4 years my junior, she had a laugh that could chase away the gloomiest day, though lately it came less often. Her dreams were bigger than this valley. Stories of far-off cities, of love that swept in like a summer storm. But she hid her pain well, the ache from losing Ma young and Pa too soon. "We can't keep patching things forever, Eliza," she said that night as we salvaged what we could from the barn's ruins. The embers glowed like accusing eyes, and the cold wind bit through my worn dress. "The bank's breathing down our necks, and after this, we need help, real help." I knew what she meant. We'd heard the tales from the ladies in town, mail-order brides they called them, women writing letters to strangers out east, promising companionship in exchange for strong backs and steady hands. It rankled me, the idea of begging for a man like ordering goods from a catalog. "We don't need no man to save us, Clara," I snapped, kicking at a charred beam. But deep down, in the quiet places of my heart, I felt the crack. Loneliness had crept in like frost on a window pane. freezing over the warmth I'd once known. Pa's death had hardened me, turned my heart to stone, but sometimes in the still of night I wondered what it would be like to have someone share the burden, not just the work, but the whispers of the soul. The next morning, as dawn painted the hills in gold and pink, we rode into town, Rawhide Creek, a dusty speck of civilization with a saloon, a general store, and a post office that doubled as the gossip hub. The streets were muddy from recent rains, wagons creaking past with miners and cowboys tipping their hats, some leering a bit too long at two unaccompanied women. Old Mrs. Whitaker, the postmistress with her spectacles perched on her nose like a judgmental bird, eyed us curiously as we handed over our letters. "You girls up to something?" she asked, her voice dripping with that small-town nosiness that could curdle milk. "Just business, ma'am?" I replied curtly, but Clara offered a smile, ever the peacemaker. We'd spent the night penning those missives by lantern light, our words careful, laced with desperation masked as practicality. Clara's letter was poetic almost, promising hard work under harsh skies, but with the warmth of loyalty for those who could endure. Mine was blunt, like a hammer strike. Food, shelter, truth, and no more asked than I'd give myself. As Mrs. Whitaker stamped the envelopes, a gust of wind rattled the door, carrying the scent of pine and promise. Or folly, who knew? The ride back was silent, save for the clip-clop of our horses' hooves. Clara glanced at me, her eyes searching. "Do you think anyone will answer, Eliza? Someone who sees us as partners, not just wives?" Her voice held a vulnerability that tugged at my heartstrings, reminding me of the girl who'd cry over lost kittens. I wanted to protect her, to shield her from the world's cruelties, but I was tired. So damn tired. "If they do, it'll be because they need us as much as we need them," I said. But inside, a flutter stirred, a forbidden hope that maybe, just maybe, love could bloom from such barren soil. Days blurred into weeks, the territory's winter creeping in like a thief. We rebuilt what we could, the fence first, splinter by splinter, my arms aching from the labor. Neighbors like young Tommy from the adjacent spread pitched in occasionally, a lanky boy of 18 with freckles and a crush on Clara that made him stammer. "Miss Hawthorne, you sure you don't need more hands?" he'd ask, blushing under his wide-brimmed hat. Clara would tease him gently, but her eyes held shadows now, the attack lingering like a bruise. Rumors spread faster than wildfire. At the general store I overheard whispers. "Those Hawthorne girls inviting strangers? Reckless, if you ask me." Mrs. Whitaker's tongue wagged, no doubt. Society here was a tight knot. Women were meant to marry young, bear children, tend hearths. Independent like us, we were oddities, threats to the order. It stung, that judgment, burrowing into my thoughts as I hammered nails under gray skies. Was I foolish to resist or brave? The loneliness gnawed deeper, memories of Pa's strong embrace fading, leaving a void that work couldn't fill. Then came the first snow, blanketing the valley in white silence. We rode to town again, hope flickering like a candle in the wind. Mrs. Whitaker handed over 2 envelopes with a smirk. "Looks like you got bites, dears." My hands trembled as I held them, one with bold, blocky script, the other flowing like a river's curve. Clara's eyes widened, a mix of excitement and fear. "Eliza, what if this changes everything?" We didn't open them right away. Back at the cabin, by the crackling fire, we sat with the letters in our laps, the weight of possibility heavy. My mind raced. What kind of men would answer such calls? Desperados? Dreamers? Or worse, charlatans seeking easy prey? Clara broke the seal first, her voice soft as she read aloud promises of hard work and steadfastness. Mine was similar, terse but sincere. Relief washed over me, mingled with a strange ache, a yearning for connection I'd long denied. The train's whistle pierced the crisp air days later, steam billowing like dragon's breath at the makeshift station. Clara and I stood shoulder to shoulder, our best dresses dusted off, hearts pounding. The door slid open and 2 men stepped down. The first was Wyatt, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes like storm clouds and a jaw set in quiet determination. He moved with the grace of a man who'd carried burdens heavier than any saddle, his coat worn but clean. "Miss Eliza Hawthorne?" he asked, his voice low and steady, sending an unexpected shiver down my spine. "That's me," I replied, chin lifted, masking the flutter in my chest. He was handsome in a rugged way, scars faint on his knuckles, but there was a depth in his gaze that spoke of hidden pains. "You here to work or just pass through?" "I'll stay if I'm wanted," he said simply, and something in his tone, honest, unadorned, stirred a warmth I hadn't felt in years. Beside him was Harlan, quicker on his feet, with a grin that lit up his face and eyes sparkling with mischief. His boots shone a bit too bright for frontier life, but his handshake was firm. "Miss Clara," he said, tipping his hat with a flourish, "you're even braver in person." Clara laughed, a sound like bells, but I saw the wariness in her eyes. "You haven't seen me with a pitchfork yet." Harlan chuckled, and just like that the air shifted, charged with possibility. No fanfare greeted them, just extra plates at supper, the cabin feeling fuller, alive. Wyatt dove into repairs the next day, tackling the western fence with silent efficiency. His muscles flexed under his shirt as he drove posts into the frozen ground, a display of raw strength that made my cheeks heat despite the chill. "You've done this before," I observed, handing him a nail. "Fences don't care who builds 'em. Long as they hold," he replied, his eyes meeting mine for a moment too long, sparking a curiosity I couldn't quell. What stories hid behind that stoic facade? Harlan, meanwhile, fumbled with the water trough, slipping on ice and cursing good-naturedly. Clara helped him, their laughter echoing, building a bridge over awkwardness. 2 weeks passed, the rhythm of the ranch shifting like seasons. Wyatt and I worked side by side often, his presence a steady anchor. But then came the wolves. One moonless night, their howls shattered the silence, followed by the terrified bleats of our sheep. "Grab the rifles!" I yelled, bursting from the cabin with Wyatt close behind. The pack was upon us, eyes glowing in the dark, fangs bared. A big gray one lunged at me, jaws snapping inches from my thigh. Wyatt fired, the beast yelping as it fell, but another clamped onto his boot. I swung my rifle butt, cracking its skull, our breaths mingling in the frenzy. We drove them off, hearts racing, blood pumping. In the aftermath, as we bandaged scrapes by lantern light, his hand brushed mine. Rough, warm. "You saved me," he murmured, eyes locking on mine with an intensity that stole my breath. For the first time, I felt seen, not as a rancher, but as a woman. Desire flickered, unbidden, a flame in the cold, but secrets lurked. Washing his coat the next day, a paper fluttered out, a wanted poster, yellowed and creased, accusing Wyatt of treason during the war, with a noose's shadow hanging over it. My blood ran cold. "What is this?" I demanded that evening, thrusting it at him. He didn't flinch. "I left the army, Eliza. Orders came to burn villages. Women, children. I couldn't. Now bounty hunters chase me." His voice cracked, revealing a vulnerability that pierced my defenses. Was he a hero or a fugitive? Trust wavered, but in his eyes I saw a man seeking redemption, much like me. The push and pull tore at my heart, fear warring with the budding affection that promised healing, if only I dared. As snow fell outside, blanketing our world in uncertainty, I wondered if love could thrive amid such danger, or if it would consume us all. The snow kept falling that night, soft and relentless, like a shroud over Sunset Valley. I sat by the window, the wanted poster crumpled in my fist, Wyatt's confession echoing in my ears like the distant howl of a coyote. Treason, bounty hunters, a noose waiting in some shadowed courthouse. My mind raced through the what-ifs, each one darker than the last. What if he brought death to our door? What if his past swallowed us whole? But beneath the fear, a spark lingered. The way his eyes had softened when he spoke of those burned villages, the raw pain in his voice that mirrored my own losses. Pa's grave out back was a constant reminder. Life in the territory didn't hand out second chances lightly. Yet here I was, contemplating one for a man I'd known mere weeks. Morning came with a brittle dawn, the sun piercing through the flakes like a reluctant promise. I found Wyatt already at work, hammering stakes into the frozen earth for a new corral. His breath clouded the air, his movements deliberate, as if proving something with every swing. "Morning, Eliza," he said without looking up, his voice steady as ever. I hesitated at the edge of the yard, the poster burning a hole in my pocket. Society's whispers haunted me. Folks in Rawhide Creek would brand him a deserter, a coward. Women like me inviting such men? We'd be pariahs, our reputations shredded like old newsprint. But watching him, sweat beading on his brow despite the chill, I felt a pull. "Wyatt!" I called, my tone sharper than intended. "If you're staying, prove it. Not with words, with work." Fix that eastern fence by sundown, and maybe we'll talk." He straightened, wiping his hands on his trousers, those storm cloud eyes meeting mine. "Fair enough. But Eliza, a man's past don't define his future unless he lets it." His words hung there, a challenge wrapped in quiet resolve. I nodded curtly and turned away, but doubt gnawed at me. What if he ran at the first sign of trouble? What hidden scars drove him here? The question swirled, pulling me deeper into a web of uncertainty, making my heart ache with a mix of fear and forbidden longing. Meanwhile, Clara was dealing with her own storm. She'd ridden into town that afternoon for supplies, her cheeks flushed from the cold when she returned. But it wasn't the wind that had her rattled. It was a letter, sealed